Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the 39th edition of LUMS Live. एक बहुत मुख्तसर सी याद दहानी, अगर जो पुराने 38 सेशंस हैं उसमें से कोई ऐसा सेशन है जो आपने मिस कर दिया है, वो YouTube पर भी मौजूद है, Facebook पर भी मौजूद है. हमारे जो एक्सपर्ट्स थे, हमारे मेहमान थे, शुरका थे, उनकी बहुत ज़हनसाज गुफ्तगू रही. अगर आप उसको तलाश करें तो बहुत कुछ ऐसा आपको सीखने समझने को मिलेगा जो शायद आपको टेलीविजन पे नहीं मिलेगा. आज का हमारा जो मौजूद सुखन एक और बहुत दिलचस्प मौजूद सुखन, और वो ये है कि बहुत अरसे के बाद इस वक्त हम देख रहे हैं पाकिस्तान में कि एजुकेशन के ऊपर गुफ्तगू शुरू हुई है. और कोविड के जहां बहुत सारे नुकसान हैं, कम से कम एक फायदा ऐसा है कि एजुकेशन के ऊपर बहुत से लोग इकट्ठे होकर देख रहे हैं कि अब ये ऑनलाइन एजुकेशन जो है इसको आगे कैसे बढ़ाया जाए. और यही हमारा आज का गुफ्तगू का मौजू है, लर्निंग हाउ टू टीच ऑनलाइन, इट्स चैलेंजेस एंड अपॉर्चुनिटीज. जो उस्ताद, अच्छे उस्ताद क्लासों में पढ़ाते हैं, क्या बिल्कुल वैसे ही वो ऑनलाइन पढ़ा सकते हैं या कोई और टूल डेवलप करने की, कोई और स्किल डेवलप करने की जरूरत है. और मैंने जानबूझ का लफ्ज उस्ताद इस्तेमाल किया क्योंकि हर शोबे में सिन्फ की तफरीक जरूरी नहीं होती, उस्ताद, उस्तानी, शायर, शायरा. हमारे आज के जो पैनलिस्ट हैं उनका पेशगी बेइंतहा शुक्रिया, उन्होंने वक्त निकाला गुफ्तगू के लिए. हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं डॉक्टर सुलेमान शाहिद, असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ कंप्यूटर साइंस, स्कूल ऑफ साइंस एंड इंजीनियरिंग, लम्स के, एंड ही इज आल्सो द डायरेक्टर ऑफ लम्स लर्निंग इंस्टीट्यूट. डॉक्टर सुलेमान, बहुत शुक्रिया आपका वक्त निकालने का और हमारे साथ आज गुफ्तगू करने का. डॉक्टर फैसल बारी एक दफा फिर हमारे साथ मौजूद हैं, वक्त निकालते हैं हमेशा, इंटरिम डीन है स्कूल ऑफ एजुकेशन लम्स के. डॉक्टर बारी, वेलकम एंड थैंक यू. डॉक्टर फाइजा इस्माइल भी आज मौजूद है हमारे साथ, असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर हैं स्कूल ऑफ लॉ की लम्स में. एंड ऑफ कोर्स बहुत दिनों के बाद, बहुत गैर हाजिरियों के बाद, the person who takes initiatives and who's very receptive to new ideas, which is wonderful to see, the Vice Chancellor of LUMS with us today, Dr. Arshad Ahmad. Dr. Sahab, welcome and thank you for your time. Dr. Suleman, मुझे अगर आपसे मैं शुरू करूं बहुत जल्दी, ये LUMS का एक लर्निंग इंस्टीट्यूट है और हाल ही में 100 ऐसे उस्ताद या उस्तानियां भी चलने कह लेते हैं जो यहाँ से ट्रेनिंग करके आए. And the idea was so that they can push the online education to another level. इससे क्या मुराद है और स्टूडेंट्स को इससे क्या फायदा होगा? क्या वो तरबियत थी या ट्रेनिंग थी जो LI में हुई और उसके क्या नताइज निकले? कुछ हमें ब्रीफ करेंगे इसके ऊपर?
जी बिल्कुल. अस्सलाम वालेकुम एवरीवन. ये हमने लर्निंग इंस्टीट्यूट के अंदर विद द हेल्प ऑफ वाइस चांसलर्स ऑफिस हमने 3 दिन का 5 घंटे एवरी डे we had arranged this session. उसमें था ये कि हमने तकरीबन हर सेशन में 30 फैकल्टी मेंबर्स को फ्रॉम डिफरेंट स्कूल्स इकट्ठा किया और उसका 3 दिन में वो डिवाइड थी. हर दिन हम 5 घंटे स्पेंड करते थे. The idea behind this whole workshop was that how to help our faculty members, colleagues to better prepare themselves for online learning. उसमें हमारा 3 main areas में focus था. The first and the most important one, overall course delivery के ऊपर. How can you prepare yourself using online tools, technologies, different techniques for delivering course in an online setting. Second चीज उसमें जो हमारा बहुत ज़्यादा focus था वो ये था कि how can you work on your assessment. Assessment have been a fundamental issue in the previous months, especially when we moved from offline settings to online settings. Because how would you shift these assessment which were happening in the in-class scenario जहाँ पे control बहुत ज़्यादा था, उसको आप कैसे offline करेंगे? So we discussed lots of techniques and tools for making our assessments interesting and relevant for the students so that they don't feel a lot of pressure. Thirdly, we talked about integrity issues. How can you handle, because when you move from offline to online, this also brings a very different topic in action, and that is that लोग कहते हैं बच्चे cheating करते हैं, बच्चे integrity issues हैं, and I think what we have tried in that workshop to switch the conversation. हमने ये नहीं कहा कि बच्चे cheating करते हैं, हमने ये कहा है कि क्या आपकी assessment ऐसी है जो सही चीज check कर रही है जिसकी वजह से बच्चे cheating करें ही ना. So why don't you really make something in such a way? Why don't you really address this issue of online learning in such a way कि बच्चों को बहुत ज़्यादा cheating करने की ज़रूरत ही ना पड़े? So instead of giving a big final end of the term exam, why don't you give a sort of more formative assessments जो बार-बार छोटे-छोटे तरीके से chunk से बच्चों को test करते रहें. And I think finally, in collectively, जो उस पूरी की पूरी workshop का message था वो ये था कि बराए मेहरबानी online learning को offline learning की तरह treat मत करें. ये एक बिल्कुल डिफरेंट दुनिया है, इसका अपना मिजाज है, اس میں اپنے کام کرنے کا طریقہ ہے, اس میں آپ کے پڑھانے کا طریقہ فرق ہے, اس میں ان کے پڑھنے کا طریقہ فرق ہے. اگر آپ سمجھتے یہ ہیں کہ آپ نے آف لائن کو کاپی کیا اور جا کر آن لائن میں پیسٹ کر دیا تو آپ کے خیال میں وہ چل پڑے گا, تو وہ چلے گا نہیں. اس کے دو نقصانات ہیں. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ بچوں کی ایکسپیکٹیشن خراب کر رہے ہیں. وہ کہتے تھے آف لائن میں یہ ہوتا تھا, اب یہ آن لائن میں نہیں ہوتا. اس لیے نہیں ہوتا کیونکہ آن لائن ڈفرنٹ دنیا ہے, اور آپ کی اپنی ایکسپیکٹیشن بھی خراب ہے کہ ہمارے بچے اتنا اچھا پرفارم کر رہے تھے یا ایسا پرفارم کر رہے تھے, اب وہ ایسا نہیں کرتے. وہ اس لیے نہیں کرتے کیونکہ وہاں پہ سیکھنے کا ماحول فرق تھا. وہاں پہ لوگ ڈفرنٹ طریقے سے سیکھتے ہیں, وہاں پہ لوگ دوستوں کے ساتھ سیکھتے ہیں. There are so many factors which come into play when you learn in a space. You don't only learn from instructors, but there is a lot of peer learning happening. There's a lot of learning happening under the tree, at the corner, کھوکھے کے اوپر, لمس کے اوپر, so people learn in a very informal way. وہ سب ختم ہو کے چلا گیا. So I think what we did with the help of 7 faculty members under the lead of Dr. Arshad, ہم نے ان کو بتایا یہ کہ you have to change the mindset. اور جب تک یہ پیراڈائم شفٹ مائنڈ سیٹ میں نہیں آئے گی, سو آپ کے ٹولس, ٹیکنیکس, جو جگاڑ ہے وہ کام نہیں کرنے والے. So I think that was a whole message. So talking about the pedagogy, talking about the learning techniques, but also about the harder mindset change کی ہم نے.
ڈاکٹر فیصل, ایک انٹرسٹنگ ٹرم یوز کی ڈاکٹر سلیمان نے کہ کٹ اینڈ پیسٹ نہیں کر سکتے ایک چیز کو, جو آف لائن اور سو ٹو اسپیک کو کٹ اینڈ پیسٹ نہیں کر سکتے. اب آپ آج کل کافی لکھ رہے ہیں ایجوکیشن کے بارے میں, پہلے بھی لکھتے رہے ہیں, آج کل ذرا زیادہ متحرک ہیں. مجھے یہ بتائیں کہ کیا اسٹوڈنٹس کے لیے اب سیکھنا کیا ضروری ہے؟ واٹ ڈو دے نیڈ ٹو لرن سو دیٹ دے کین لرن؟
دیکھیں بہت شکریہ. 2-3 چیزیں ذہن میں رکھنے والی ہیں. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ جو لرننگ ٹو لرن ہے وہ ایک لمبا پروسیس ہوتا ہے. اس میں آپ جب کسی انڈر گریڈ, اسپیشلی میں انڈر گریڈ کے حساب سے بات کروں گا کہ انڈر گریڈ ایجوکیشن میں آتے ہیں تو لرننگ ٹو لرن از ون آف دا مین تھنگز دیٹ یو ڈو ان دا 4 years جو آپ یہاں پہ تعلیم کسی بھی ادارے میں یا کسی بھی جگہ پہ تعلیم حاصل کر رہے ہو. اس میں 2-3 پہلو بہت امپورٹنٹ ہیں. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ کوئی بھی چیز جو آپ نے پڑھنی ہے, سیکھنی ہے, اس کو پڑھنا کیسے ہے, سیکھنا کیسے ہے, اس کو انٹرنلائز کیسے کرنا ہے, اس کو انڈرسٹینڈ کیسے کرنا ہے, ڈیپ کیسے لے کے جانا ہے تاکہ وہ آپ کی شخصیت اور آپ کے جو پرسنالٹی ہے اس کا حصہ بن سکے. سو یہ کافی نہیں ہے کہ آپ نے کسی چیز کو پڑھا, رٹ لیا یا ریپروڈیوس کر دیا, وہ بالکل کافی نہیں ہے. ہماری اٹیمپٹ یہ ہوتی ہے کہ ہم جو چیز آپ کو پڑھائیں یا جو چیز ہم سیکھیں وہ آپ کے دنیا کو دیکھنے کا, اس کو سمجھنے کا, اس کو پرکھنے کا طریقہ بھی بن جائے. وہ ٹولنگ آپ کو بعد میں بھی ساری عمر ڈیپ بھی ہوتی رہے اور کام بھی آئے. سو ایک وہ حصہ ہے اس کا جو آپ اپنے آپ پہ کام کرتے ہیں تاکہ یہ چیزیں گہرائی تک جا سکیں. دوسری پھر وہ اسپیسیفک سکلز بھی ہوتی ہیں جو آپ کسی بھی سبجیکٹ ایریا میں سیکھتے ہیں. انڈر گریڈ میں آپ کا کوئی میجر ہوتا ہے, اس میجر میں کچھ حصے ہوتے ہیں جس میں آپ نے وہ چیزیں سیکھنی ہیں اور وہ سگنل بھی کرنا ہے کہ وہ آپ کو آتی ہیں, اس کا استعمال بھی آتا ہے, وہ آپ صحیح طریقے سے اپلائی بھی کر سکتے ہیں. تیسرا اس کا پہلو ہے یہ ان ساری چیزوں کو پھر جو آپ 20-25 یا جتنے بھی کورسز کرتے ہیں ان کو اکٹھا بھی کرنا ہوتا ہے تاکہ آپ ایک اوور آل تعلیم یافتہ شخصیت کے طور پہ سامنے آ سکیں. سو یہ ساری چیزیں آپ کو اپنے کورسز میں کلاس کے اندر اور کلاس کے باہر ہر وقت یہ کرنی ہوتی ہے. میرا یہ پرسنل اپنی ویو ہے کہ بہت ساری لرننگ آٹو ڈائڈیکٹک یعنی سیلف لرنڈ ہوتی ہے. آپ کی محنت اس میں بہت زیادہ ہوتی ہے. ٹیچرز, باقی پیئرز آپ کے لیے راستے دکھا سکتے ہیں, دروازے دکھا سکتے ہیں, دروازے غالباً کھول بھی سکتے ہیں, لیکن اس سے گزر کے آپ نے کتنا فائدہ کسی چیز سے لینا ہے وہ بہت سارا اسٹوڈنٹس پہ آتا ہے. کلاس میں فرق, کلاس اور آن لائن لرننگ کا یہ ایک بہت بڑا ہے کہ آن لائن لرننگ میں کیونکہ آپ کلاس میں بیٹھے نہیں ہوتے, وہاں پہ موجود نہیں ہوتے, تو بہت ساری یہ چیزیں زیادہ ایکسپلیسٹ ہو جاتی ہیں. اس کا آپ نے خیال کرنا ہوتا ہے زیادہ پہلے سے کہ ان چیزوں کو کیسے آپ نے فل پوٹینشیل پہ لے کے جانا ہے. تو وہ چیز آن لائن میں بہت زیادہ فرق ہو جاتی ہے کلاس سے. کلاس میں کئی دفعہ کیونکہ آپ کا ماحول ویسا ہوتا ہے, آپ باقی لوگوں کے ساتھ بیٹھے ہوتے ہیں اور ہوم انوائرمنٹس اتنے میٹر نہیں کرتے, تو وہ چیز زیادہ سامنے نہیں آتی. लेकिन क्लास से बाहर ये चीज़ ज़्यादा सामने आती है, स्पेशली जब ऑनलाइन लर्निंग सिंक्रोनस एसिंक्रोनस उन दोनों का मिक्स हो जाए, तो और भी इम्पोर्टेंट हो जाता है कि आप खुद अपने आप को किस तरह रेगुलेट करते हैं और किस तरह इन मौके से फ़ायदा उठाते हैं, उस पे ज़्यादा कॉन्शियसली काम करने की ज़रूरत आ जाती है।
Dr. Faiza, I have a 10-year-old और कल स्कूल खुल रहा है उसका, and his school hours are 8 to 1 p.m., 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. And he was very happy. I said, why are you happy? And he said, it's 5 hours of gaming, Baba. It's online. So I don't have to pay attention to what's going on. So that scares me. So my question to you would be, as someone who's benefited from the training that Dr. Suleman mentioned, what are your takeaways as an instructor or as a teacher where you engage students or learners? What have you learned which are actually tangible benefits? Or is it just a training that we do and we get a certificate and then, you know, people switch off and people are, you know, online and offline and there's no real benefit?
I'm sorry, is this a question from me?
Yes, please.
I just, the connection is not very clear. Can you repeat the question? Question miss ho gaya kyunki I cannot hear you clearly.
The training that you received, do you feel there are any tangible benefits of that training that you can actually use?
Yes, there are many benefits of the training. So we all, when lockdown started and we all went online, so we all just could figure out what worked for us individually. But during the training, we got to know about new tools and new strategies, and we discussed and shared each other's experience, which was also very useful to understand what works and what doesn't work. So training is not just about useful. The experiences shared here, we got to know about new tools. Those aspects of the training बहुत ही useful. But again, just like as we are teaching more and more online, we would come across challenges and problems, and you would get to know the benefits of online teaching as well. So training, again, it's an ongoing learning process.
Dr. Arshad, there's something very unique for a vice chancellor to do. You spent over 60 hours in a training, which is unusual for vice chancellors. What were the challenges as a co-instructor, and what are the tangible benefits that you think LUMS will get out of this training that you were also a part of? Dr. Arshad, you want to unmute the mic?
Indeed. Ji, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Thank you, Adil. And a great question. Yeah. Dekhen, it wasn't a chore. It wasn't something that, you know, I didn't enjoy doing. In fact, it was one of the greatest privileges to be working and actually going into the classrooms of, you know, 60 or 70, I think there were even more, maybe up to 100 faculty that we worked with. You know, to actually see what they do in the classroom. And in my position, I don't get that chance. I don't get that opportunity. But to be able to actually see what they're thinking and what they're struggling with, what the challenges are, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better mahal. So, challenges का आप पूछ रहे थे? एक तो ये है कि जैसे I'll echo some of the things that have been said. I mean, one of the main challenges for both students and for faculty, I'll start with faculty, but it's a mirror. Whatever I will say applies to both. The first thing is workload. I think कोई शक नहीं है कि आप इस तरफ हैं उस तरफ हैं, आपका काम जो है वो बहुत बढ़ गया है. अगर faculty हैं तो आप सोचें कि देखें एकदम से आपको पूरा जो आप पढ़ाते थे आंखें बंद करके पढ़ा सकते थे. आपने कितनी दफा पढ़ाया था, आपने वो छोटी छोटी चीजें calibrate करनी थी. When you know you're connecting and that aha moment, some people even have jokes that they are timing and they knew exactly when to lay them on to their audience, but not so in the online world. जैसे अब सुलेमान बता रहे थे कि देखिए, it's a completely different setting and you can't copy and paste. It's just not possible. It doesn't work. In fact, if you do it, it just doesn't work, and for many, many reasons. So the workload factor was huge, you know, revisiting course outlines, starting from scratch, thinking about ki kis tarah, how will we know that they know? And ये बात जो फैसल साहब ने की है बहुत ऊंची बात है about what is the purpose of all this. आप भी यही उनसे पूछ रहे थे कि आखिर इसकी जड़ क्या है? I mean, what are the real challenges that we are trying to accomplish, whether it's offline or online? And we know that intellectual development is a part of that equation. Passing the test or writing the assignment or doing the exam, those are pieces that, yes, they'll give you a degree if you do well in that. And we want you to learn that knowledge and impart it and be able to be confident about it. But as I think it was Aristotle who said that educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And, LUMS, what we are trying to do is develop that persona, that the independence of thinking for yourself, learning how to learn on your own and getting the confidence to do so. So uske andar ye jo pehli baat ki hai workload ki, let me add 3 quick things here. And they all start with M, so people might remember this. So, and these have been said. First was mindset that Dr. Suleman mentioned. So we all have to change our mindsets. We are going from one medium to another. We have to rethink, redesign, and reconsider how we are going to engage our students. तो ये तो पहली बात हो गई. लेकिन उसकी जड़ की बात है दूसरा M, motivation. I mean, the motivation to learn is the most mysterious part of learning. Why is a student so excited about your course, but actually couldn't care less about the other course? वही student है, वही सीखने के लिए आए हैं, लेकिन एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने में उनका बिल्कुल वो बदल जाता है. तो ये दूसरी बात है motivation की. How do we tap into hook people? How do we get people excited about what we are learning, what we know, and how they can learn for themselves? And the third thing, I think everyone has said, mahol ki baat hai. How are you creating a mahol where people feel encouraged? People can, either in the chat box or making a comment or asking questions, or offline, they are also connecting and going to office hours and making sure that they are they feel that this is a place where learning is number one. We are there to help you to learn, and everybody's doing their part. So my experience was, I tell you, it was transformative for me, as I think it was for many people who basically came and showed us how they teach, got some feedback, and then taught again, got some feedback, and then, this is कि आपको शीशा दिखा दिया है. ये whole exercise of training, आप ये शीशा दिखा दिया, आप देखें आप कर रहे क्या हैं, और अपने जो उस्ताद हैं आसपास उनसे सुन लें कि वो अगर आपके सीख रहे हैं आपसे, तो what are they thinking? So teachers became students, students became teachers. Amazing stuff. Congratulations to Suleman and his team.
Dr. Suleman, I would be very threatened and nervous to take this kind of training where there are people, young people giving feedback. I just get very defensive. I get nervous, because in this country, feedback means criticism. That's how I equate it. So well done. My question to you would be, what tools do you use? What platforms do you use where you teach teachers how to teach? अब वो जो बात की डॉक्टर अरशद ने कि मोटिवेशन, अरे ये तो एक ऐसी ना नजर आने वाली एक चिड़िया है, ये कहाँ से आएगी? ये माहौल, ये it's not a thing. माहौल isn't a thing. It's a feeling. Like motivation is a feeling. How do you teach or train someone to give out that feeling? What are the tools that you use? What pills do you give the teachers?
Excellent question, Adil. And I think it's the same thing. People have anxiety. Faculty members have anxiety. We were just uncertain, can we do it or not? And I think the first and the most important thing is to help all of us and them realize that it's a new environment where we're all together. So by bringing them online and staying with them for 15 hours over 3 days, you build this bond of working together. I think सबसे बड़ी पिल यही है कि you as a team, वो एक कहते हैं एक हमाम में सब नंगे हैं. So जब आप सब हरकतें कर रहे हैं और सब बोल रहे हैं और सब काम कर रहे हैं, आपको सबको एक दूसरे के ब्लाइंड स्पॉट्स पता चल रहे हैं, आपको नजर आ रहा है यार ये तो बड़ा जबरदस्त अजीम प्रोफेसर था, लेकिन गलती आके छोटी ये भी वही करता है जो मैं करता हूँ. So I think this gives you lots of confidence to learn from others also. I think it's very, very important to realize that in this new normal, which I don't like the word, it's a very scary word, the new normal, but still in this new normal, nobody can claim कि मुझे कुछ बहुत कुछ पता है. We're all co-learning. We're all learning together. So I think when you bring these people together and then help them to sort of expose them in this new learning environment, it doesn't matter tool concept. Really, physically, it could be any tool. It could be Zoom like this. It could be a Skype call. It could be a telephone call. It doesn't really matter. Tools become a secondary thing. The first thing is message care. What do you want to get out of it? What the purpose is, what the learning outcomes are. I think that's a key message. The key message is कि हमने मिलके as a community इस problem को solve करना है. Well, let's do it together. Message is कि हम सबकी कुछ ना कुछ गलतियां हैं. Let's focus on that. Third चीज is हम सबकी strengths हैं. एक CS का प्रोफेसर अपनी टेक्नोलॉजिकल स्ट्रेंथ लेके आता है, एक हिस्ट्री का प्रोफेसर अपनी पेडागोजिकल स्ट्रेंथ लेके आता है, एक एजुकेशन का प्रोफेसर अपनी स्ट्रेंथ लेके आता है. You put them together and then help them to understand each other and make something better out of it. एक जमा एक 11 हो जाते हैं. So I think it's not about the tools. It's not about Zoom करना है, Skype करना है. It's about क्या आपने करना ये है कि ये मसला सबका, ये स्टूडेंट इतना बड़ा मसला स्टूडेंट्स का उतना ही बड़ा मसला हमारा है. हमारा ज्यादा बड़ा मसला है यार ये. मतलब आई रियली टेल माय स्टूडेंट्स कि यार यकीन करें हमारा काम डबल हो गया. बिलीव अस, वी वर्किंग वेरी हार्ड. बिलीव अस. फॉर अस, जो अरशद साहब ने बात की कि मैं तो कोर्स पढ़ाता हूँ डिजाइन का, मैंने तो अपने नोट्स में जोक्स फिट किए हुए हैं और मैं एक जोक भी इस्तेमाल नहीं कर सकता. बच्चों को तो लगता ही है कि मैं कोने पे खड़ा हुआ, मैंने हाथ रखा और मैंने जोक फेंक दिया. वो जोक, उस पर मुझे 5 साल लगे उस जोक तक पहुंचने में. आई कांट डू दैट. So it's a lot of effort for us. We have to really unlearn and relearn. So I think this conversation, this messaging, this discussion is what is important, not keep Zoom pe ya team pe.
I think it's most interesting. The unlearn, relearn philosophy is most interesting. Dr. Suleman, I'd be delighted to help you with more newer jokes, okay, if you want. I'm just kidding with you. Dr. Faisal, we equate teaching with learning, and it's not that simple. Teaching doesn't translate into learning automatically. They're different things. So when, there's the shift from offline or classroom learning to online learning, तो जब teaching तो change की, क्या वो learning में भी change हो रही है? Is that happening? या हम बस भाई काम तो बहुत बढ़ गया है, भाई हम तो बहुत मेहनती टीचर हैं यार, तो हम तो काम रातों को भी करते हैं, अच्छा भी करते हैं, but is learning taking place? Is the outcome there? Is there any way to measure that also?
So that's one of our big tasks is कि 2-3 चीजें करने की जरूरत है. एक तो ये कि जब हम नए फॉर्मेट पे नए तरीके से पढ़ा रहे हैं, तो उसके साथ जो पहले भी सुलेमान ने भी बात की, हमारे असेसमेंट के तरीके भी बदल रहे हैं. हम कोशिश करते हैं कि साथ साथ फॉर्मेटिव तरीके से उसकी असेसमेंट भी हो सके, ताकि हमें साथ साथ पता लगे कि जो हमारे स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो क्या सीख पा रहे हैं, क्या नहीं सीख पा रहे हैं. दूसरी चीज़ ये है कि जिस तरह आपके टूल्स और तरीके बदलते हैं, उसके साथ साथ जो आपने नए गोल सेट कर रहे हैं, उनके हिसाब से ही फिर आप अपने असेसमेंट टूल्स और बाकी पेडागॉजी और बाकी चीज़ें भी बनाते हैं. सो वो लिंक तो आप रखते हैं और बहुत ज़्यादा उस पर फोकस करते हैं. इनफैक्ट ये जो कोर्स जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हैं, उसमें बहुत एम्फेसिस इस पे है कि आपके गोल्स क्या हैं और उनको असेसमेंट, कंटेंट और टूल्स और मेथड्स के ज़रिए कैसे स्टूडेंट तक पहुंचाना है और कैसे ये इंश्योर करना है कि वो लर्निंग होगी भी. इसकी एक साइड ये ज़रूर, सो वो तो सारे एट ईच इंडिविजुअल टीचर्स लेवल वो चलता रहता है और थ्रू आउट द कोर्स चलता है. लेकिन दूसरा इसके साथ साथ जो होता है कि यूनिवर्सिटी भी पूरी अपनी कोशिश कर रही है कि जो हमारे तरीके थे ये नज़र रखने के, ये फीडबैक लूप्स जो हम बनाना चाहते हैं, फ्रॉम जो सीख रहा है उससे वापस और जो सिखा रहा है उससे भी वापस, वो भी यूनिवर्सिटी जो है उन पे भी काम कर रही है कि वो कॉन्स्टेंटली हम चेंज करते रहते हैं कि वो कैसे हम बेहतर इंफॉर्मेशन गैदर कर सकते हैं, जिससे टीचर्स और लर्नर्स दोनों को, सारे लर्नर्स हैं पर दोनों को पता लगता रहे कि what works, what is not working well, and how do we change the things that are not working well. So उसमें ये जो जितनी गुफ्तगू आजकल हो रही है सारी about कि भाई क्लासेस छोटी करनी है या एसिंक्रोनस और सिंक्रोनस का मिक्स करना है या जो असेसमेंट्स चेंज करनी है उनको फॉर्मेटिव बनाना है या जो आपने स्मॉल ब्रेकआउट रूम्स वगैरह बनाने हैं वो सारी चीज़ें इससे ही लिंक्ड हैं कि आप ताकि आपको साथ साथ फीडबैक भी आता रहे कि किस तरह से वो काम करेंगी। बट ये सुलेमान की ये बात बहुत ज़बरदस्त थी कि ये पक्की बात है कि जो जोक्स आपके क्लास में चल जाते थे वो जोक्स जो हैं वो ऑनलाइन ज़रूरी नहीं है कि चले, तो वो भी सारे दोबारा से आपको सोचने पड़ेंगे कि कौन से किस मौके पे कौन सा चीज़ अच्छी तरह से जा सकती है।
We have at least 3 people mentioning how their jokes are outdated, and I'm loving this conversation. Dr. Faiza, you went through that journey. Let me call it a journey. We heard what Dr. Arshad said about his journey, how he thought it was transformative for him. Tell us a little bit about how it was your journey as a person, as a professional, as a teacher, as someone who was getting the training. Tell us what happened inside your head. Dr. Faiza, you might want to unmute the mic. We can't hear you.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, so it's interesting. It's quite interesting that I did not take online teaching training. I took teaching training before that. So that was a ISW instructional workshop. It was instructional skills workshop. So where I'm personally interested in teaching strategies and all, and at law school we use Socratic teaching methods where we just start with questions, and through questions we help students to reach to answers. But you're asking about my journey. Yes, well, we all had to teach online for the spring semester. Half of the semester was taught online. It was quite an not interesting situation, but quite everybody was panicked, and students just got an extension in their spring break. And when some of the students contacted me, and I understood after speaking to them that they had no idea what was going to happen, and they were planning to come back after like a month or so. So instantly, I was teaching 2 courses, and I created a WhatsApp group for each classes, and they got 24/7 access to me, so they could always send the questions and tell me their stories or the problems which was going on. But this WhatsApp group, and I would say this communication which we opened through the WhatsApp group, it was quite helpful for students to understand that we instructors are with them, just to give them this support system was very essential. I understand, and I think it's proved to be very useful, and it was appreciated through the feedback or students' evaluations. So WhatsApp groups were good, and then I also could not figure out whether I was going asynchronous or synchronous or online lectures or recordings, right? So there was one suggestion that we could go for recorded lectures. So I would record the lectures and post it on LMS or any other social media where students could access those lectures and then prepare for exams and any assessment and learn as well. Well, so I conducted a poll and I asked students whether they wanted recorded video lessons or they wanted me to go live and have class discussions as we used to do that. And it turned out that it was like 49% of the students wanted live sessions, 51% was wanted video lectures. I also came to know that the two types of problems, or I would say 2 groups of students. One group was more concerned about their investment into the course and what they're getting out of it while we were online. And the other group had problems with internet connections and domestic problems and problems from home. Study from home was difficult for them. So these 2 groups created quite an interesting situation for me. And I was just trying to figure out how to accommodate all of them. So although the poll was conducted, but I gave them the option. So I was going live and I was recording those lectures as well. And I gave them the option to either participate in live discussions, or they could also post their class participation through LMS. So I used LMS forum features. Every lecture was posted. It was first conducted live in the morning. And there were students who would participate in live discussions, and then those lectures would be posted. And there was written CP, we call it class participation points. So the TAs were very helpful, and I really appreciate them for being there in live sessions as well as to mark the class participation, which was posted on forum. But so this is a part of the journey. Very important aspect of this journey was about assessment. Assessment was quite a challenge. It was, well, I generally prefer in-person exams, and those exams, well, when it was online, it was hard to see how students are going to do the exams, but still I just prepared the problem questions so that there was no question of cheating. It was open book, open notes. The exam was all about problems, and students must go through lectures and lecture notes to answer the questions. But I also gave them, some of the students had the problem with internet connection. So I gave them the option to either go for exam or go for research-based paper. And some students with internet connection problems, they chose the paper, and they had more time to do the research paper than exam. Well, so yes, but yeah, so it went well, and the evaluation was very good, and it was very positive, which I shared with Dr. Lana, who works with Suleman, and then she asked me, she invited me to talk to faculty at School of Education, and that turned out to be a good experience too. But my point is that students actually appreciated the effort, but there's no doubt that I spent insane amount of time responding to students' texts on WhatsApp, emails, and preparing 2 exams. That took a lot of time too. And as we all appreciate that a lot of time from the instructor went on the preparation of exams and the lectures. But it was well rewarded, I think, because the evaluations were very, very positive and very encouraging.
Thank you. 49%, 51%, very, very, evenly poised. Dr. Arshad, we have a question, and I'm going to throw it at you. Mashal Asma Khalid wants to know something, very valid point. She says the private sector has enough resources so they can quickly switch to online. Is there any way that those resources can be used so we can help the government in government schools? Is there any way that a partnership can be formed so that the out-of-school students can come back, or perhaps government teachers can be trained, and the private sector can help the government do that? That's interesting.
Gee, I think probably Dr. Bari is the expert amongst us to be able to answer this question better than I can. But my take on it would be that it's not about resources in the sense of you can go and buy something and then spend it, and then suddenly this problem will get solved. Because as you've heard, it's a question of changing behaviors. It's a question of working with peers. Jo Suleman sahab keh rahe the about motivation is a function of those conversations you're having with your peers. And the conversations often, ek iski main aapko insight de dun, public, private, it doesn't matter who the players are in whatever sector. The conversations, when they begin with acknowledging something that is working. So whenever we gave feedback to someone, you always started with कि इसमें आपको पसंद क्या आया? What was the good part about this? When you start on what I would call a positive note, then people open up and they want to hear कि you're giving feedback for them to improve, not to judge them. So you're right that academics are very critical, and they tend to give feedback that is critical, but you can also give critical feedback that is going to be directed to improve your behaviors or your changing role. So to answer Mashal's question, which is an excellent question, it has a lot to do with whether or not training will become a priority, number one, and whether we can have collaborations. And we are already. I can give examples. I think Suleman is leading right now an MOU with a private organization that is giving training to public sector teachers, K to 12. You know, they have constraints like they don't have budgets for training. And if they do, they are very small. So if there are positive collaborations with universities like ours, I think we can solve that problem, because online learning suddenly gives you access that otherwise it would be very difficult to arrange if it was to bring people to LUMS, let's say, or to go to those disparate areas around the country. There are tremendous opportunities now through online learning where if you can get those three things right, you know, if you can get the mahal, the motivation, and the mindset, if you can get these three things right, you doesn't matter what sector you're in. आपकी ये शुरू हो जाए, गुफ्तगू शुरू हो जाए, आप एक दूसरे को फीडबैक दें और फिर प्रैक्टिस करें, बात सिर्फ नहीं करें, प्रैक्टिस करें, अप्लाई करें. अब देखें, आप फोन, अगर किसी के पास भी फोन हो, if you can just videotape 5 minutes of your instruction, and there are some you know, steps in those 5 minutes, but if you do it properly, then you can share it with your peers, the ones that you trust, the ones that you've gotten to know, and those people are going to give you amazing feedback. I mean, don't forget, we do this in research. The whole model of scholarship is based on working, sharing your ideas on a regular basis. There's no different in teaching. All we have to do, and this is, I think, a point that I would really like to underline, is that we have to make our teaching public. You know, we have to bring it out from a private activity in some room in a corner, nobody's allowed in. Ironically, though, it is meant to be for a lot of people. You want to share your teaching, celebrate your teaching, and whatever stage you're at, work with your peers to take it to the next level, take it to the next level. And believe me, it doesn't end. It is a journey. You know, so 40 years later, I can tell you I learned a lot of things about how I could improve my teaching. And similarly, other people can as well.
Celebrate your teaching. That's a very good line. I was just thinking when you had mentioned the 3 M's, उसमें आपने उर्दू का लफ्ज़ लगा दिया, motivation के बाद माहौल. I enjoyed that. And then you say practice, तो उसके लिए उर्दू का लफ्ज़ है मश्क करना. So that's the 4th M. माहौल और फिर मश्क करना उसकी. Only to impress Dr. Faisal Bari with my Urdu. Dr. Suleman, my next question is, ये तो कोविड की वजह से, you know, एकदम speed up हो गया सारा कुछ. If there was no COVID, we would still be doing what we are doing. Not saying that's a good or a bad thing. I'm just saying it's a thing. हम तसव्वुर ये करें कि 1, 2, 6 महीने के बाद कोविड कम हो जाए या खत्म हो जाए, कि हम उस रद्द-ए-अमल हमारा कम हो जाए. Do you think we'll go back to the older traditional ways of teaching? Again, not saying good or bad. या आपको लगता है कि अब जो हम ऑनलाइन टूल्स डेवलप कर रहे हैं, Zoom एक है या फलाना है, या they will continue, या ये कम हो जाएंगे, बढ़ जाएंगे? How do you see the future of online instruction? Dr. Suleman,
excellent point. Yeah, excellent point, Adil. I'll just take maybe 30 seconds to comment on Dr. Arshad's thoughts, and that is that this making your teaching public, if I say that there is one thing which has worked the best for us at LUMS in really improving the quality of education, or maybe a quality of, you know, instruction with the help of some of our workshops, is really peer feedback, peer review. And if there is one core message which I think we can, for everyone who is watching us outside LUMS, we can send, is that it's not really a rocket science. There are some systematic steps one has to follow, but the basic thing begins with that. Please invite others. You know, please invite others, and you know, give them freedom to give you constructive feedback, and don't take it personally. You know, don't really think that they're destroying you. Allow them to give you positive feedback. Allow them to ask you questions. Okay, what works and what doesn't work. You know, allow them to give you feedback. इसमें आप बहुत अच्छे हैं, but also allow them to give you feedback that doesn't work. You know, ये बहुत ज़्यादा ज़रूरी चीज़ ये भी पता हो कि confidence आए कि क्या चलता है और क्या नहीं चलता. So I think it's a very simple formula, and it has worked tremendously for us. And I think everyone outside LUMS can really benefit from this. And I would say, just experiment with this. This is wonderful. Coming back to your question, Adil, I think this would be a bad idea to move back as a mission. I think this should not be the case कि कुछ हुआ, बुरा ख्वाब आया, अब हम सुबह उठ गए हैं, अब दौड़ लगा दें वापस की तरफ जहां से हम निकले थे. I think that strategy is not a right strategy. Dr. Arshad nicely had explained in one of our conversations we were together is that when I raised this point, he summarized it by saying that we have given flexibility to students. You know, अब उनकी अपनी मर्जी है कि उन्होंने क्लास में पढ़ना है, क्लास से बाहर पढ़ना है, काउच पे बैठ के पढ़ना है, कहीं और पढ़ना है. So I think this new flexibility because of the medium that they can learn online, they can learn offline, they can learn in many different ways. I think this flexibility they will enjoy it. और ये इतना आसान नहीं होगा. I think they would like to come back to the campus. They would love to come back to the campus, not ready to sit in the class. They would like to come back to the campus because there's so many other aspects of the campus which makes the learning interesting and benefiting. It's not sitting in the class which is the most fun. You know, so हमें अब बहुत extra effort करनी पड़ेगी वापस आने के बाद उनके ऊपर. अगर हम ये समझें कि हम जितना बुरे तरीके से ऑफलाइन पढ़ा रहे थे, ऑनलाइन के बाद दोबारा वैसे ही पढ़ाना शुरू कर देंगे तो बच्चे हमारी क्लास में नहीं आने वाले. उन्होंने कहना सर कैमरा लगाएं, बच्चे को पकड़ाएं एक मोबाइल फोन, अपनी रिकॉर्डिंग करवाएं, आप चढ़ाएं. आई एम हैविंग लॉट्स ऑफ फन आउटसाइड, सन इज शाइनिंग, द वेदर इज गुड, मैं आपकी वीडियो LMS पे देख लूंगा. सो आई थिंक हमारी एफर्ट डबल हो जाएगी. So really, we as a community of faculty members really have to rethink about it कि हमने बच्चों को बहुत empowered कर दी है. बच्चे बेशक किसी चीज को भी ना समझें, and perfectly fine because whenever the change comes in, पहला reaction तो ना ही होता है, पता नहीं हमारे साथ zoom हो गया. And this is perfectly fine. There are equity issues, connectivity issues, but I think there's a lot of flexibility. We are flexible, they are flexible. So I think हम वैसे नहीं रहेंगे और कोई इंस्टीट्यूट कोशिश करता है कि हमने दोबारा वैसे हो जाना है. आई थिंक दैट वुड बी अ बैड आइडिया बिकॉज हमने बहुत मेहनत की है बहुत आगे आने की, तो वापस नहीं जाना चाहिए. अब हमें हाइब्रिड अप्रोच में चलना चाहिए और अगर आपने कोशिश की वापस जाने की तो जितनी मेहनत ऑनलाइन क्लासेस पे की उससे डबल मेहनत ऑफलाइन पे करनी पड़ेगी. ओके, बच्चे हमें छोड़ेंगे नहीं, उनको पता चल गया है कि ये ऑनलाइन क्या होता है और ऑफलाइन क्या होता है, तो आपको डबल मेहनत करनी पड़ेगी. तो इसलिए आई थिंक when we go back, this hybrid would be a new way of teaching. This would not be online, this would not be offline, it would be a third way of teaching. That would be hybrid teaching. So I would say don't go back as a mission. Use what we have learned and then use it in your own benefit for the students as well as for the faculty members.
Well, Doc, if you do go back, at least you can use your old jokes. So, you know, that effort will be saved. You wouldn't have to come up with newer jokes. Dr. Faisal,
they have watched my LUMS X live, so they know that they are the old ones.
It's done. The joke is out. Dr. Faisal, two questions. एक तो I am surrounded by doctors today. तो ये सिर्फ मैं ही मरीज हूँ, बाकी सब तो डॉक्टर्स हैं. वो तिब्बी डॉक्टर नहीं है, तालीमी डॉक्टर पर हैं. तो डॉक्टर तो अपनी जहालत का इंसान को बहुत जल्द इतराफ करना चाहिए. तो एक दफा आपने, तो डॉक्टर फायजा ने एक टर्म यूज की, synchronous and asynchronous learning. So what is that? So that's my first question. अगर आप वादा करें कि इसका जवाब मुख्तसर देंगे तो मैं आपसे दूसरा सवाल भी पूछ लूं.
जी जरूर प्लीज.
दूसरा सवाल ये है, डॉक्टर सुलेमान इज वेरी पॉजिटिव अबाउट कि नहीं, हमें पीछे अब नहीं जाना. मे बी सम स्टूडेंट्स थिंक दैट द ऑनलाइन लर्निंग इज एक्चुअली सेकंड क्लास लर्निंग, जैसे एक सेकंड क्लास सिटीजन्स होते हैं अमेरिका में, कि यार वहां बैठ के जो बात है वो बात ऑनलाइन नहीं आती. Dr. Suleman doesn't agree with that. What do you think? Do you think online learning with all its tools and all its stuff and razzmatazz is second-line learning, or जो personal learning होती है class में या interaction, that's different?
अच्छा, पहले तो synchronous asynchronous पे बात करें. फायजा ने ये बात कुछ की थी कि देखिए synchronous में you have to be live और एक वक्त में आप सब स्टूडेंट्स के साथ इंटरैक्ट कर रहे होते हैं, चाहे वो ब्रेकआउट ग्रुप में छोटे ग्रुप में हो या बड़े पूरी क्लास के साथ हो. एसिंक्रोनस जो है वो है कि आप उनको एक्सरसाइजेज, मटेरियल, बाकी चीज़ें वो ऑनलाइन प्रोवाइड कर देते हैं और वो अपने टाइम पे उसको समझ के उसको रिस्पॉन्ड वगैरह कर सकते हैं. हमारी प्रॉब्लम ये हो रही है कि बहुत जगह इंटरनेट के इश्यूज हैं. अभी इंटरनेट की स्टेबिलिटी और स्पीड वो नहीं है कि हम हर वक्त सिंक्रोनस को यूज़ कर सकें. जैसे अभी भी हम देख रहे थे कि आवाज़ के इश्यूज, किसी का जूम में आना जाना ये वो, उसकी वजह से हम टोटली अगर सिर्फ सिंक्रोनस करते हैं तो वो बहुत सारे स्टूडेंट्स के लिए फुली पार्टिसिपेट करना उसमें मुश्किल हो जाता है। एसिंक्रोनस का इशू ये है कि एसिंक्रोनस क्योंकि इंटरैक्टिव करना मुश्किल होता है, उसमें आप बना सकते हैं लेकिन वो ओवर टाइम इंटरैक्शन हो सकते हैं कि आप लिख के या कोई चीज़ करके मुझे भेजें, मैं फिर आपको जवाब दूं, वो कितनी जल्दी आपको वापस मिलता है ये वो, लेकिन वो होगा इन टाइम ही, वो उस मोमेंट में नहीं हो सकता, लाइव नहीं हो सकता। दोनों की अपनी इम्पोर्टेंस है, दोनों की ज़रूरत है। इंटरनेट के इश्यूज इंशाल्लाह जैसे जैसे आहिस्ता आहिस्ता बेहतर होंगे, ये ऑप्शंस और ज़्यादा खुल जाएंगी कि आप सिंक्रोनस और एसिंक्रोनस को अच्छे तरीके से मिक्स कर सकते हैं। मेरे ख्याल में इक्विलिब्रियम में जो भी इक्विलिब्रियम नोशन आप इस्तेमाल करें, सोचें, इन दोनों की बहुत ज़रूरत है, क्योंकि हमें बहुत सारी चीज़ें जो हैं वो डिस्कशन से, फीडबैक से और फीडबैक, लाइव फीडबैक से समझ आती हैं। बात करना पड़ती है कि जी मैं इसको ऐसे समझाऊँ, आपका क्या ख्याल है, या दूसरों का पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू क्या है, या वो जिस तरह मेरे एक उस्ताद करते थे ना, देयर इज ऑलवेज योर व्यू, माय व्यू एंड द राइट व्यू। तो वो राइट व्यू भी समझना ज़रूरी है, वो उसके लिए पीयर्स वगैरह के पास जाना पड़ता है, ये वो, सो वो बहुत ज़रूरी है। लेकिन उसके साथ साथ वो टाइम भी चाहिए जिसमें आप कोई चीज़ पढ़ें, लिखें, समझें, उस पर गौर करें और फिर वापस आ सकें, और जो फीडबैक आपको मिल रहा है उसको भी थोड़ा सोचने का आप टाइम दे सकें कि उसके बारे में। सो दोनों को मिक्स करके हमें चलना पड़ेगा। वो बैलेंस एग्जैक्टली क्या होगा, अभी थोड़ा सा हमारा मसला ये चल रहा है कि क्योंकि इंटरनेट के इश्यूज हैं तो ज़्यादा हम सिंक्रोनस एसिंक्रोनस को उस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से सोच रहे हैं। लेकिन अगर जैसे जैसे इंटरनेट के इश्यूज इंशाल्लाह ख़त्म होते जाएंगे, ये बेहतर होता जाएगा, उन इलाकों में भी बेहतर हो जाएगा इंटरनेट जहाँ मसले हैं, स्टेबिलिटी भी बढ़ेगी हमारे इंटरनेट नेटवर्क की, तो फिर जो एसिंक्रोनस और सिंक्रोनस का हम मिक्स कर सकेंगे, वो बड़ा वो मुनासिब मिक्स हम इवेंचुअली उस पर पहुँच सकेंगे। दूसरा आपने पूछा कि जो क्या ऑनलाइन लर्निंग इज इट सेकंड क्लास। ना अगर आप इसको वैसे सोचेंगे कि जी हमारी मजबूरी थी कि हम कोविड की वजह से उस पर जाना पड़ा और उसी तरीके से पढ़ाएंगे कि जी मैं जैसे क्लास पढ़ाता था आप उसको ऑनलाइन ले गए हैं, तो जाहिर है वो फिर सेकंड क्लास ही बनेगी। अगर आप उसको समझते हैं कि भाई हेयर्स एन अपॉर्चुनिटी कि एक और तरीके से पढ़ाने का मौका है, इस पे गौर व फिक्र कीजिए, इसकी पोटेंशियलिटी देखिए, इसके सारी जो स्ट्रेंथ्स हैं उसको इस्तेमाल कीजिए, और फिर अपने सोचने, अपने पढ़ाने का, पढ़ने का और सोचने का तरीका बनाइए, जो कि माइंडसेट की बहुत देर से बात हो रही है। तो फिर ये सेकंड क्लास नहीं, इट्स अ डिफरेंट वे ऑफ डूइंग दिस। इट माइट इवन एक्चुअली बी बेटर फॉर मेनी स्टूडेंट्स के वो हो सकता है ऑनलाइन में ज़्यादा समझ, पढ़ और सीख सकें, क्योंकि उसमें फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी, जो सुलेमान ने भी जिक्र किया, फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी ज़्यादा होती है। क्लासेस आपको बहुत एडवांटेज देती हैं, फिजिकल में आप बहुत कुछ सीख सकते, लेकिन बहुत सारी चीज़ें ऑनलाइन में उससे बहुत बेहतर हो जाती हैं। सो वो दोनों को आपको अलग अलग देखना पड़ेगा और फिर ये देखना पड़ेगा कि आपके लिए क्या बेहतर है। इवन इन इक्विलिब्रियम, फॉरगेट कोविड इंशाल्लाह थोड़े अरसे में, 6 महीने, साल में हम वापस हमारे पास वो ऑप्शंस खुल जाएंगे, तब भी मेरे ख्याल में जैसे सुलेमान ने कहा, वापसी बिल्कुल नहीं। एक दरिया में 2 दफा आप कदम नहीं रख सकते, वो कदम रखना भी नहीं चाहिए। आप अब आगे बढ़िए, सोचिए कि ये जो सारे टूल्स हैं, इन अ वे ज़रूरत ईजाद की माँ कहलाती है ना, तो ज़रूरत पड़ी तो हम बहुत सारी चीज़ें, इस पे बहुत ज़्यादा लोग सोच रहे हैं कि इन चीज़ों को आगे कैसे डेवलप करना है। वो डेवलपमेंट अगर होती रही तो हो सकता है ऑनलाइन हमारे जो लर्निंग और टीचिंग के ऑप्शंस हैं वो फिजिकल लर्निंग और टीचिंग से बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी भी हो जाएं और होती जा रही हैं, और बहुत ज़्यादा फ्लेक्सिबिलिटी और ऑप्शंस भी दे दें स्टूडेंट्स को। मैं इसको कनेक्ट करूंगा, आपने जो सवाल अरशद साहब से पूछा था, थोड़ा सा अगर आप मुझे 1 मिनट और दे दें। देखें, हम ये सोच रहे हैं हमारे 20 मिलियन बच्चे स्कूलों से बाहर बैठे हुए हैं 5 से 16 साल के। मेरे ख्याल में ऑनलाइन लर्निंग के जो नए तरीके आ रहे हैं उनसे हम बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं उन बच्चों के लिए भी। पाकिस्तान का बहुत बड़ा एक मसला ये चल रहा है कि क्वालिटी ऑफ एजुकेशन जो स्कूलों में है उनकी भी, और जो स्कूलों से बाहर हैं उनको तो एजुकेशन मिल ही नहीं रही ना। दोनों को हमने बहुत बेहतर करना है। वो बेहतरी करने के लिए मेरे ख्याल में ऑनलाइन प्रोवाइड्स ट्रिमेंडस अपॉर्चुनिटीज नाउ, और उसमें अगर हम सही तरह से इन्वेस्ट कर पाए तो वो हमारे लिए बहुत फ़ायदेमंद होगा 21वीं सदी में आगे जाते हुए। आखिरी चीज़ मैं सिर्फ एक ये कह दूं कि इसमें कोई शक नहीं, मेरे कम से कम जितना मैंने पढ़ा, देखा, सुना, समझा, कि स्कूल और यूनिवर्सिटी में इस लिहाज से थोड़ा सा फ़र्क है। जो बहुत अर्ली ईयर्स के बच्चे हैं उनके लिए उस तरह से रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी लेना अपनी लर्निंग के लिए शायद मुमकिन ना हो। आपने अपने 10 साल के बच्चे का जिक्र किया था ना, उनके कंसंट्रेशन लेवल्स, उनके इंटरेस्ट, उनकी चीज़ें और तरह से हमें स्ट्रक्चर करनी पड़ेंगी ऑनलाइन में बनिस्बत यूनिवर्सिटी के। यूनिवर्सिटी में थोड़ा सा एज का फ़र्क होता है, मैच्योरिटी का फ़र्क, बहुत सारी चीज़ों का फ़र्क आ जाता है। यूनिवर्सिटी में हम, जैसे अरशद साहब भी बात करते रहते हैं, वी आर एक्चुअली ऑलमोस्ट लुकिंग एट पीयर्स, राइट, कि हमने उनके साथ कैसे वो चीज़ें स्ट्रक्चर करनी है जो हमारी सबकी लर्निंग को आगे ले जा सकें, राइट। उसमें स्टूडेंट का नोशन काफ़ी फ़र्क हो जाता है निस्बतन अर्ली ईयर्स में स्कूलिंग वगैरह में। सो वो चीज़ जहन में रखते हुए हमने ऑप्टिमल स्ट्रक्चर्स डिज़ाइन करने हैं। और मेरे ख्याल में तो ये एक इतनी अच्छी ज़बरदस्त अपॉर्चुनिटी मिली है कि इसको इस्तेमाल करना चाहिए। ज़ाहिर मैं कोविड की बात नहीं कर रहा, कोविड तो बहुत बुरा हुआ, सब कुछ हुआ, लेकिन जो उससे दरवाजे खुल सकते हैं, हमें वो दरवाजे बेतहाशा अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ नज़र आ रही हैं जिनका हमें फ़ायदा उठाना चाहिए। और वो उससे उसको नए तरीके से हमें सोचने का और स्ट्रक्चर करने का मौका मिल रहा है।
Excellent. I'm super excited if we can somehow educate those 20 million kids or even a portion of that kids. That will be tremendous progress. Tremendous progress. और आपने वादा किया था मुख्तसर बात करने का, मुझे वो शेर याद आया, गजब किया तेरे वादे का इतबार किया. No, I'm just kidding with you. Dr. Faiza, I'm interested in one thing as a teacher, as a lay person, as a student. जो गुफ्तगू हुई, मैं दो अल्फाज यूज करना चाहता हूँ. एक तो डॉक्टर अरशद ने कहा कि प्रैक्टिस भी तो करें ना जो हमने सीखा, यू नो, टीचर्स नीड टू प्रैक्टिस दैट. तो वो एक इन सम सेंस इट्स अ फिजिकल एक्सरसाइज दैट वी नीड टू डू. जो भी है, एक साइकोलॉजिकल लर्निंग है वेयर योर बैरियर्स गो डाउन, यू फील सिक्योर, यू डोंट फील एंग्शियस, यू डोंट फील डिफेंसिव व्हेन समबडी इज सेइंग समथिंग टू यू. आपके लिए इन दोनों में से कौन सा मुश्किल था, जो साइकोलॉजिकल वॉल्स को नीचे करके सीखना या एक कोई नया टूल सीखना कि भाई ये बच्चे की जुबान बोलते हैं या इनकी लिंगो ये है, ये वोकैबुलरी ये है, आई नीड टू लर्न दिस. मुश्किल कौन सा पार्ट था इसमें से आपके लिए ज्यादा?
The first question I would take is practicing what we've learned. So practicing मुश्किल नहीं था. I tried so many new things. So WhatsApp group जो हमने बनाया था, तो I was in Karachi and I was taking some pictures and what was going on there. The city was closed most of the time, and so मैंने वो post की videos, तो बच्चों ने वो बड़ी पसंद की कि yeah, this is something that they could relate the problems that they were stuck at home and I'm stuck at home and everybody is stuck at home. So they were not alone. So practice ऐसे जितना मुश्किल नहीं था, लेकिन responses was difficult because poll मैंने जब conduct किया तो so initially students, I just asked them on the WhatsApp group how would they like to proceed for the lectures, for the assessment. And they had different suggestions and they were talking about their problems, internet issues or sab kuch. Lekin when I conducted the poll, so they got the satisfaction that at least they are being heard. So they were not so aggressive. So I understood that initially they came up with different types of suggestions and you cannot accommodate everything, right? So I came up with this poll, so they understood that there's something going on, somebody is listening to them. So that was good, and after the poll results were communicated to them, they were quite okay. Okay, हाँ हमने ये choose किया. But then I allowed them all the options which I gave them in the poll. So मेरे लिए मुश्किल इसलिए नहीं था. I personally I'm very interested in teaching methods और ये ISW की जो classes जो sessions हमने लिए थे, that was all totally voluntary. So nobody was pushing me or ये कि I just like to experiment too much. So mainly, to be honest, both of the suggestions I would say or advice, they were all, I used them and I found them very interesting and the results were rewarding. So it was not difficult. Maybe I'm
excellent. मुश्किलें मुझ पर पड़ी इतनी कि आसान हो गई. Dr. Arshad, sorry, go ahead, Faiza. Go ahead. You were saying something?
Maybe I like to take the difficult route. I don't know in terms of teaching. Yeah. So yeah.
Dr. Arshad, two questions. एक जरा सा पुराना सवाल है, हमजा हुसैन ने भेजा है, इस पे गुफ्तगू. I just want you to touch upon that. And he's saying, Hamza is saying, do you believe education has now become more of a business rather than institution where you polish and develop future Nobel laureates and scientists? So touch upon this, but then I also want to talk about how LUMS have responded to this change on a micro and a macro level of online, offline, criticism, ye ho gaya, wo teacher training, students carrying these khole, band kare, all of that. How has LUMS responded to this bombardment of ideas and criticisms and expectations?
Okay. Well, regarding Hamza's question, if he's saying, has it become a business, yani paise bana rahe hain, I don't know the intention of what he means by business. Agar paise banane ki baat kar rahe hain, so I mean, public sector or for us, not-for-profit institutions, uska to koi sawal paida nahi hota hai. We are not in there for profit. But financial sustainability, if he's talking about that, then of course everybody has to think how you're going to stand on your own feet. And agar aapne promise kiya hai ki logon ko scholarships denge, jaise hum karte hain, 1 out of 3 students get support. So we are responsible for getting money for that support. Hawa se to nahi aayenge paise. So in that respect, business is always there in terms of financial commitments and sustainability and all that. And COVID makes it a lot more difficult, lot more. Log samajhte hain ki hum paise bacha rahe hain abhi. हमारी बिजनेस बेहतर हो गई है कोविड से. मैं सबको एक मैसेज ये दे दूं जल्दी से कि ऐसी कोई बात ही नहीं है. I mean, we want students back, we want them to pay tuition, etc. This is a different story. We are financially, like every other university, very in difficult times. So let's not have any misconceptions about that. Are we trying to develop future Nobel laureates? My goodness, I don't know, Pakistan, 73 years old, has produced 2 Nobel laureates. I don't think that's the bar that we set for students who come in here. One of you will become a Nobel laureate. No, I mean, if it happens, great. I remember Malala Sahiba telling us that she wanted to apply to LUMS before anywhere else. So that's all would have been good, but that's not why we exist. We are here, of course, to help students in a rite of passage in developing as individuals, as I said earlier, intellectually and beyond, to serve society and the communities that they will end up in. आपका जो दूसरा सवाल था, जरा बड़ा था. It was a big one. Can you summarize your own question so I can give a succinct answer?
When there was so much bombardment of criticism and expectation from LUMS on a macro level, how did you guys manage, or did LUMS manage somehow to kind of navigate through all of that clutter and all of that ladai, jhagde? Students kuch keh rahe hain, finance wale kuch keh rahe hain, teachers kuch keh rahe hain, pata kisi ko kuch hai nahi. But what do you do when there's no precedence? Dr. Faisal, I think, agrees with me, finally.
So I'll say 3 things. One of them is what Dr. Faiza earlier said, which is that if you truly believe that your students are your partners, that if you truly believe that you don't blame them, I mean, ये बहुत आसान होता है कि सब उनका कसूर है कि वो समझते नहीं है, वो उनको गुस्सा आया हुआ है, या they are immature. I mean, there's so many things. People point fingers at young people. Anybody who has children, anybody who has been there themselves understands that they have in fact something a lot more to contribute than the challenges that they may be presenting to you. So the first thing we've done is to really listen to them as real partners in all the decisions that we make, involve them, engage them in our governance, in our councils, in our decision making. Students are always there. So listening to them, not just respectfully, but meaningfully, taking their input in seriously and responding to it is very, very important. And I think this helped us a lot because many of our not only administrators, but I think every faculty member believes in their students. After all, this is why they are here in the first place, because of students. So ये पहली बात है. दूसरी बात ये है कि देखें, let's admit, nobody knew the answers. And I think we were quite humble about this in saying, we don't have all the answers. We will tell you where we are at. We will monitor situations. जैसे campus opening का है, बहुत सवाल है. आप क्यों नहीं आने दे रहे हैं? पूरी पाकिस्तान में तो you know, everyone is opening, you can go to the marketplace. Why have you got your campus closed? And there are reasons, and there are more reasons where we've put health and safety first. And I think we're doing the right thing based on some ethical, moral standards we have of doing no harm. And we see now, you know, what is going on in the United States, what's going on in other countries that have opened prematurely and have to now send their students back. So nobody has the right answer. Believe me, we may not have the right answer, but we would rather err on the side of caution. So that is another principle to put health. I mean, learning is important, but living is more important. So I think we better keep that in mind. So, you know, there are some common sense things that we are trying to put in play, but keeping the communication lines open. And the third part is people are frustrated with this whole business of, जैसे वो शुरू में कह रही थी वो Dr. Faiza again, people are stuck. You know, they are frustrated, they are stuck. They need to spend their energy productively, especially young people. And you know, everybody is finding themselves in this conundrum. So I think what we've done is we have tried to find a whole bunch of new projects, new directions where a lot of our energy as faculty members, as administrators, as staff, we have diverted that energy. And this forum is one example. I mean, you said this is the 39th time that you have gathered people together. That's quite an accomplishment, Adil, for the audiences that you draw, for the learning that takes place here. This is a result of diverting energy and making something productive happen so we can give back to our community. There's a long list of those examples. So what we've done is to say, aap ghabra nahi jaye, think out of the box, think about ways in which you can do things. Some of them may not succeed in the right away. There may be bumps along the road, but let's harness that energy and put it somewhere where we can make a difference. And it's about this whole business of your role. You know, you could have any role in the institution, whether it's a faculty, a student, or an administrator, a staff member, anybody, you know, but your role has to adapt to the times we find ourselves in, and these are interesting times. Let's not forget that. That's not just a Chinese saying, by the way. These are indeed interesting times.
I would second that, because once we started the LUMS Live session 39 weeks ago, I remember we were bombarded with questions, and I would ask Dr. Arshad and other panelists, what's the plan? And the answer was, we are trying, we don't know. We are experimenting, we are learning, we don't know. So well done on that. We are out of time, but I'm going to throw one more question at everyone. Dr. Suleman, wish list, one thing you could get right, what would that be? What's your wish list? I'm not saying bucket list, I'm saying wish list.
Why me? Okay. If there is one thing I think we could get it right, is that find the right model or balance for online offline teaching, hybrid teaching. I think if we could get it right, this is gonna change Pakistan, because there's only one way to scale learning in Pakistan in the next 10-20 years, and that's through technology. I don't see any other way but technology which can scale learning in Pakistan. And if we can find the right method of using technology with a hybrid model, I think we'll change Pakistan educational landscape.
Okay. Dr. Faisal, wish list one thing. Dr. Suleman thinks hybrid learning is his topmost priority. Anything else that you can think of that you would want to get done or see someone do?
So अब वो सुलेमान ने कह ही दिया है हाइब्रिड लर्निंग का, वो तो पहला होना ही था. But I also want to say कि I mean ये बात कई दफ़ा आई ना, आपने भी कही कि भाई क्रिटिसिज्म के लिए किस तरह बंदा अपने आप को तैयार करे क्रिटिक के लिए. मुझे हमेशा लगता है कि पाकिस्तान में जिस नहज पे सोशल मीडिया बाकी जगहों पे हम आ गए हैं, एम्पैथी की और हुस्न ज़न की बहुत ज़्यादा कमी मुझे महसूस होती है कि दूसरे के बारे में जो आप सोचते हैं कि वो किस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से आ रहा है, थोड़ा सा अगर आप जहन अपना खोल के दिल बड़ा करके बात शुरू करें तो बहुत सारे ये मसले मसाइल बगैर लड़ाई के, बगैर ये डिफेंसिव हुए हम हल कर सकते हैं। इसमें ये नहीं पहले ही ईंट मारना मुझे अजीब सा लगता है। अगर वो चीज़ में इनकलकेट अगर पाकिस्तान में बहुत ज़्यादा स्पेशली सारी अक्रॉस द बोर्ड अगर आ सके किसी तरह, और वो तालीम से और बातें करने से ही आएगी। तालीम का मकसद सिर्फ ये एक कोर्स की मैं बात नहीं कर रहा, मैं जनरल बात कर रहा हूँ तालीम के बारे में। वो जो तालीम से हमें आनी चाहिए चीज़, उसमें मेरे लिए एम्पैथी बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट है कि आप अपनी तरफ से भी दूसरे के, विच पीपल कॉल पुटिंग योरसेल्फ इन अदर पर्सन शूज, दूसरे के जगह अपने आप को खड़ा करके भी देख सकें, और फिर देख सकें कि उनका पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू आपसे मतसादम जरूर होगा, पर इसका ये मतलब नहीं कि हम और वो या यूर विद मी एंड और अगेंस्ट मी वाली बात है। सब ने हमने ये सारे पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू आगे लेके चलना है। सो अगर वो साथ आ जाए उस मॉडल के थ्रू हम वो भी इनकलकेट कर सकें तो मैं बहुत खुश होऊंगा, आराम से रिटायर भी हो सकूंगा और इवेंचुअली आगे भी जा सकूंगा।
Well, you wish retirement. अभी तो बहुत काम करना है आपने. I like the term that you use, दिल बड़ा करके. I remember Faiz Misra, जो आए कि हम दिल कुशादा रखते हैं. So I think that's what we need to do. And I think LUMS Live is a great place where I've seen people disagree with each other vehemently, but not be disrespectful. And how wonderful that is, where you can disagree but not disrespect. Because somehow that's kind of, on social media, disagreeing equals disrespect, which is just mind-boggling for me. So wonderful. Dr. Faiza, wish list any one thing. So we've had hybrid learning, we've had empathy. Any fancy word that you fancy?
A wish list in terms of what? Future training or future
Correct.
teaching? Or,
Yes,
right?
yes.
In terms, if we are teaching online, then definitely I would like every student, everyone who is participating, they should have good internet connection. वो बहुत बड़ा मसला उससे हल हो जाता है, क्योंकि I understood that students were actually willing to participate and willing to learn, but there were obstacles like internet connections. Second, open communication is very important, just like you said that, and it again goes back to Bari साहब ने जो कहा कि trust नहीं है, students don't trust instructors and instructors don't trust students. So हमारा concern ये होता है कि in case of assessment they are going to do cheating and stuff. Or students, one of the students actually said that to me on one of the WhatsApp chat, that you instructor, so she was like, you're being so accommodating because after all, we students are going to get into higher positions and we are going to give you some benefit. And I said, well, one day maybe you will be maybe a Nobel Prize winner, but that's not my motivation. So trust is very important, and open communication, so that you can communicate to them that, look, I understand your problems, but I'm also in trouble as well. And while I do accommodate you, but I'm also putting in a lot of time into it and a lot of effort. So communication clear honi chahiye dono taraf se. और फिर internet issues और trust तो बहुत ज़रूरी है पाकिस्तान में, particularly nobody trusts anybody.
Okay. Dr. Faiza has spoken for 3 things. Dr. Arshad, all the best things have been spoken for. Anything that you want to wish for? Internet bhi ho gaya, empathy bhi ho gayi, trust bhi ho gaya, education bhi ho gayi. Anything left for you that you would wish for?
Indeed. I think that the 2 words that I would use in this, given these other very important points that have been raised, are risk and return. So I don't think we're going to get any further in our discourse on improving, whether it's online teaching or whether it's other ways in which we get closer to our students and engage them, unless we take some risks. We all have to be willing to take some risks. And we are creatures of habit, as we get older, especially, it becomes more and more, we want to keep doing the things that we are comfortable with. We have this comfort zone. And even when we attend workshops, seminars, read an article, kisi ki baat aur sun li, and we go, aha, this is fantastic. There is a step between understanding and then, changing your behavior. And for that, you need to take risk. So you need a university where risks are in fact encouraged, where you can do things, you can make mistakes, where students can take courses and fail, but then bounce right back and become better than ever before. So this is a kind of zone of development which requires this kind of confusion, requires some uncertainty, it requires, and my God, COVID has done that for us. But I think we should keep in mind that under the circumstances, we have to double down and also take some risks and try new things, because there is a very high correlation in many, many disciplines between risk and return. Economics, there's certainly that correlation. आप ज़्यादा risk लेंगे, आपको ज़्यादा compensate reward मिलेगा बाद में. In long-term periods, that's in fact how markets behave, where you have this kind of correlation. But I think development में भी ये correlation है, human development में भी यही correlation है. जो लोग दूसरी चीजें try करते हैं, तो वो कभी धक्के मिलते हैं और कभी-कभी बहुत एकदम से दरवाजा खुल जाता है. So I think if you don't try, you will never know. And we want to support this kind of attitude. We want, in fact, we said that course evaluations, which faculty are measured on for their teaching effectiveness, you can suspend that course evaluation for a semester if you're going to make major changes in your teaching. So, you don't know how students will react. Probably they won't like it because you're going to make them work more. This is the irony of it, कि आप उनको engage करें, आप ज़्यादा उनको पढ़ाएं, वो ज़्यादा सीखें, बाद में कहते हैं यार हमारा तो दिमाग खराब कर दिया वो इंस्ट्रक्टर ने, वो दूसरे वाले सेक्शन में तो कोई काम ही नहीं था, बड़ी अयाशी थी, यहाँ पर तो यार ये बहुत बुरा इंस्ट्रक्टर है. So we want to encourage this risk reward, and I think if we can have that as part of the mindset, that would be amazing too.
Wonderful, wonderful discussion today. Certainly for me, most enlightening. We're out of time. मुझे एक वो saying याद आ गई by an American writer called Pearl Buck when Dr. Arshad mentioned risk-taking, and she writes, the young are not prudent enough, and hence they attempt and achieve the impossible generation after generation. So I think that's just fantastic, where the younger people are perhaps the ones to take more risks. Dr. Suleman, Dr. Faisal, Dr. Faiza, Dr. Arshad, thank you so much for your time and for your knowledge. और जो हमारे साथी देख रहे हैं, आप सबके लिए भी बहुत सी दुआएं. Keep watching LUMS Live. अपना बहुत ख्याल रखें, and hopefully we'll see you soon. अच्छा जी, thank you. Pakistan Zindabad and Khuda Hafiz.
Thank you, Adil. Thank you very much.